There is nothing like this particular text. Have someone who is not a generally knowledgeable in Jewish community, tell them, would you read this? And give it to them. And they read it and they say, you say, where's that from? You know what they'll say? New Testament. Yeah. They understand it? They understand it. But do you also understand, as far as I've been able to determine, nowhere in the readings of Torah and the parallel passages has this passage ever been listed as one of the readings in the synagogue. Never. Just after, not this one. Not this one. It is completely avoided. So it begins with what? The mystery, write this down, the mystery of the servant. He starts with, this could be a banner over the whole thing. Behold, my servant will have success. Haskell, which is just like in Joshua, would have success. So he wants you to know, look, we're going to go through some rough stuff, but I want you to know the servant, Eved Yahweh, is going to have success. And he'll be raised up and lifted up and highly exalted. Some say that's his death, burial, and resurrection. I don't think so. Nice try, and it's good. But it just says it's going to be fantastic in every way. And now, a comparison. Just as, verse 14, you have Asher, then in verse 15, Cain. Just as so. Just as this, so that. What's just as? Just as there were many who were appalled at him. His appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any man. His form marred beyond human likeness. Oh, no. That's not an ideal to follow. So, he will, and now, sprinkle. I know there's a big debate over this, but I think here, he shall startle many nations. All right, the Septuagint said thaumazo. Thaumazo, shock, startle many nations. Some think it's sprinkling. And kings will say, well, shut my mouth. That's the expression there, because of him. For what had not been told, they will see, and what they've not heard, they will understand. King of kings and Lord of lords. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sing the Hallelujah chorus. But I like even better in the Hallelujah chorus, where Handel came in and with full orchestration and with tripleissimo for timpani, boom, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive glory and honor and blessing, dominion and power. Yeah, go ahead, sing it, baby. So at any rate, the mystery of the servant. But now, in 53, 1 through 3, the rejection of the servant. He's going to startle many, even though everyone said, not too much here. So who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? And I debated Rabbi Pinchas Lapid. We worked for 5 years with one of my students who was on the television show, John Enkerberg. And John said, well, will you debate a rabbi, if I get one, on is Yeshua the Messiah? I said, sure. Which side do you want me to take? You'll be glad to know I took the positive. Well, they found a Rabbi Pinchas Lapid. Pinchas Lapid is an Israeli scholar who was teaching at that time in Germany. And he had written a book on the resurrection. You know what he said? There was a resurrection, but it didn't prove he was the Messiah. He said that. He said there are enough empirical grounds to say he came back again from the dead. So we're going along. And he says, Kaiser, this is us. we got this chapter that we focused on. In 5 sessions, half hour each, we weren't allowed to talk to each other. So that everything was on camera, everything we had to say until the end of the day. And he said, this is us. And I said, he said, we went to Auschwitz. And he said, it was the Christians that sent us there. Oh boy, it was getting really difficult. I said, I realized people who claimed they were Christians, but Dr. Lapid, I doubt if that was really an example of what the Christian's supposed to be. He said, yeah, but we still are the ones suffering. This is us in this chapter. And I said, yes, but I said, I'm a good friend. He was calling me a good friend, so I called him a good friend too. And we went back and forth, and I said that he was, this text says that he did no guile, neither was there any deceit in his mouth. I said, what Gentile or what Jewish person would you think that described? He didn't answer me. He let that go. So he said, well, I'll tell you what's the problem. You Christians, you say that there is two comings of Mashiach. We Jews say there's only one. He will come in a time of shalom. And I said, where did you get that? He said, in the Tanakh. You get it from the New Testament. No. I said, I get it from the Tanakh. He said, where? I said, where do you get that he's coming in peace? He said, in Zechariah. I said, good. Zechariah 12:10. They shall look on me. I said, who is that Eli? He said, he didn't want to use God's name in vain, so he said, the Almighty. I said, okay. They'll look on the Almighty, whom they pierced. I said, how did he get pierced? He said, I do not know. I said, I have an idea. This is how it went. I almost had that memorized word for word. But they rejected him. He grew up like a tender twig, like a root out of the dry ground. No beauty, no majesty to attract us. Nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men. A man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, like one from whom we hide our face. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Yeah. And so we went on. I'll come back, Barry. And the next 3 verses, I said, that's the atonement. Surely he took our infirmities. He carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by God. We said, look at that. He's up on that tree. He's on that cross. I'll bet he did something awful. We added it up. Bottom line, he sinned against God. We esteemed him not. We said he's stricken by God. Yet he took our infirmities, carried our sorrows, and yet we said he's hit by God. Nakah. Smitten by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. And the punishment that brought us peace was upon him. He took the electric chair so we could have peace. All we like sheep have gone astray. There is that herd instinct. Yeah. It's called depravity. All we like sheep. Bah. And we've turned each one to his own way. Okay, Arminius, we did sin too. So there is personal guilt and there's corporate depravity and personal one here. And the Lord laid on him the iniquity of us all. On him? On him. Then this submission. He submits in suffering. Verse 7, he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he didn't open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as sheep before his shears is silent. He didn't open his mouth. You can shear sheep and get that, they nick them and barb, not a bleep out of their mouth at all. Not one. And what about his death? By oppression and judgment, he was taken away, snatched away, yanked away. And who can speak of his descendants? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people, he was stricken. And oh boy, the anti-messianic missionaries come back and they say, look at this. He here is Lamo. And that's plural. And they say, nah, that does occur. You have instances of Lamo where it is a singular. He was assigned a grave with the wicked. You know what that is in Hebrew? Plural. Why? He was between two thieves. And with the rich, guess what that word is in? Singular. One's in the plural because he was between two thieves. But the other one, between the rich, which was singular, Joseph of Arimathea, in his death, though he had done no violence, which is what Pilate said 3 times, nor was any deceit in his mouth. And now, the final 5th, if the central one was the atonement, all we like sheep, then this one is the exaltation of the servant. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. So, who put Jesus on the cross? We all did? Or it was God's will? Both are answers. And though the Lord makes his life a guilt offering, a sham, he will see his seed and prolong his days. And the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After suffering of his soul, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. And by his knowledge, I don't know, da'at, from yada, to know. Yada, da'at, dalet, ayin, tau. But za'at, there is in Sumerian, not Sumerian, Ugaritic, za'at, by his sweat, my righteous servant will justify many. Za'at. You ought to see the commentaries go on. By his knowledge. And they go 14, 15 pages, which means they don't know. So they just keep writing. Therefore, I write commentaries, I know. I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death. He was numbered with the transgressors. He bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. So, do you believe in El and Tulip? Limited atonement? Well, if you mean that the death of Christ was sufficient for all, but efficient only for those that came, that believe. Yeah. Which I think is how the councils of Dort did that for the Reformed people. But some get it. They have a double predestinering. God elected the chosen, God elected the damned. I can't buy that. Barry, I cut you off. You had a question a while back.
You were talking about Figus Lapid, and I remember when that took place, 2 things. One, you and I were writing, and you said, pray for him, he's close to the kingdom. Remember those words? Secondly, I think you told me that he held a view that the Messiah was resurrected for the Gentiles, and that when he comes back, he might be for the Jews too. Some kind of...
Yeah, I think your memory's better than mine on that point. That's coming back to me. He was a marvelous man. We went back, this took place down in Tennessee, Chattanooga. We were taping it there.
On the John Ankerberg.
On John Ankerberg show. And so we did ride back in the car together. He and I were in the back seat. Pinchas Lapid, and myself, and his wife in the front with, I don't know, John Ankerberg was driving or not. And she turns around and she says, today was a very, and she put her fingers together like this, a special kairos for me. Well, kairos, a special point in time. And he said, yes, my good friend Kaiser, I don't want to be impertinent, but he said, it seemed as if the Holy Spirit was present while we were talking. Yeah, I don't know. And I had to bid him goodbye. It was Friday night. And he said, are you going to observe the Shabbat? And I said, Dr. Lapid, I said, the seventh day was holy, but in the feast, half the feast, the eighth day was holy too. I'm going to catch the eighth day. He said, okay. You understand, I'm doing some delicate dancing there. So we went back, but I heard the next day, on Sunday, he took a plane up to New York City, and the man who picked him up was a paramedic, and they're on the way to the airport, and he has a heart seizure. So right in the middle of the highway, he does a U-turn, takes him back, and for a month, he was in the, what do they call this, special, yeah, and he had a quadruple bypass for that whole thing. And he had asked me, he said, would you send me some of your books? Which I sent to his home address at that point, which was in Germany. But I never found out we never corresponded after that. I never got in touch with him, but what a marvelous time. Ankerberg has played that thing and played that thing and played it over the years. This was how many years ago were you at Trinity?
Early 80s.
Early 80s, yeah. So that's a while back. What's that?
They just translate some of his works into English.
Yeah, that one on the resurrection is in English.
There's one that I thought just recently was translated into English.
He has about 4 or 5 of his books translated in English. Pinchas Lapid, he is an expert in New Testament studies. Yeah. So, look at that clock.
Look him, let's do Isaiah 63.
Look, John chapter 11, loose them and let them go. Yeah. Yeah, one question.
It's not a question, it's about the Pinchas Lapid who passed away October 23rd, 1997.
1997? You have it? Look at that. This is what I'm saying. You say things there, so. What a day we're living in. Thanks for that. 97.
They used to tell him what
1997, October.
they used to tell him what could be if the person's a Christian was, but they do that anymore. They used to tell what the religion is.
Really?
Agnostic or whatever.
Well, look, what could I say? I can only thank you. There's a whole lot more I didn't tell you. I feel embarrassed. But what a great time we've had together. Thank you. I ask only one thing, that those who are taking for credit, I've gotten a little bit of pushback on the outline of doing the PowerPoint. If you would do even if you do that, do sentence descriptions of what you're trying to do in that PowerPoint. So because of who is reading it? Michael is reading the papers? Yeah. And so he asked that you do that. But again, even if you don't do the course for credit, enjoy the reading of the Tanakh. It is just marvelous. There are at least 100 straightforward predictions without getting into types and signs and things that sort. These are direct, straightforward teachings there. So would that God would raise up a whole group of people that would be faithful to his word and give the word like it was given last night, just with all of its power and enjoy it. Jeff, last word.
Yeah, if we send an email to you, is there a possibility that your 7-year-old grandchild could put your notes online and send them out to us?
He's listening to the lectures very closely. There is a website you can get me on, which is Kerith Farm, all one word, KERITHFARM at AOL.com. That part's easy. Most of you are on AOL. Where's Kerith Farm? It's Elijah. The brook Cherith, or Kerith. Yeah, it was spelled in King James CH, but now they bring it over with K. Now, why did I name our farm Kerith? Because I'm waiting now as retired man for the ravens to come feed me.
And for you to be
What's that?
caught up in a whirlwind, you want to go like Enoch.
Well, could be. God bless you. Thanks so much for being here.